Hi guys, a Brexiteer and can I say Irish Eurosceptic sat down to talk absolute nonsense about Brexit, the EU, the UK and immigration. Former First Minister and DUP Leader Arlene Forster, who campaigned for Brexit even though some of us warned her it would be bad for the Union, interviewed anti-European Ruth Dudley Edwards in what I believe is an attempt to drum up support for a hard border on the island of Ireland, the original goal of the DUP. In this part of the interview, neither showed an understanding of what sovereignty is or even mentioned the Good Friday Agreement, which is the reason why we shouldn't have a border on the island of Ireland in the first place. Fools talking to fools.
I mean, you've written about this over this past week. You had a piece in the Telegraph. Ireland has made its bed with the EU. It must lie in it. What did you mean by that?
I meant that it decided to surrender all its sovereignty to the EU.
Yeah.
And it is.
What does sovereignty mean? Can you tell me what sovereignty means? Obviously, she can't respond to this, but what the hell does she mean by sovereignty? Ireland gave away all its sovereignty to the EU. So here I am sitting in Italy. Italy, I presume, has no sovereignty because it's a member of the European Union. France has no sovereignty. Germany has no sovereignty. I'd love to know what she means by sovereignty. Maybe she doesn't understand herself what she means by sovereignty.
It is now helpless. And it also absolutely insisted on all post-Brexit negotiations that there should be no hard border.
Yeah. And of course, there is, as Theresa Villiers...
And why? Why did they insist that there should be no hard border on the island of Ireland? Because of a thing called the Good Friday Agreement. Because in the Good Friday Agreement, it stipulates that we need to remove infrastructure on the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. So if there was a hard border post-Brexit, then what would happen? You'd need to have infrastructure. That would be in breach of the Good Friday Agreement.
She was saying earlier on when she was on with Camilla this morning that there's a certain irony around all of this as well, because at the time of the Brexit negotiations, when I was indeed First Minister of Northern Ireland, we were told, no, Ireland can't negotiate with the UK, they have to negotiate with the European Union. And now when the Prime Minister says that in relation to migration, he's, that's terrible.
I know. They are not being terribly logical about this.
Because we're talking about two separate things here. When the UK left the European Union, it didn't leave Ireland. What the hell are these people talking about here? When there was the negotiations, of course the negotiation took place between the UK government and the European Union because the UK was leaving the European Union. Now, when it came to the border, the Irish government had influence over the EU. They said, look, we need to make sure that the Good Friday Agreement is protected. That's why we ended up with a border in the Irish Sea that Arlene Forster has been complaining about.
I mean, Ireland is the country I come from.
Sure.
And I have quite a lot of loyalty to it, but I have a lot of loyalty to this country too.
Yeah.
And I like to, I will shout for Ireland at cricket, but I'll shout for England at rugby.
Yes.
What the hell is that about?
So I try to be fair. But the fact of the matter is, they talk about a century of seeking sovereignty from the big bully next door.
Yes.
They got it. And they didn't really enjoy it. So they handed it over to the EU. So
what the hell does that mean? They got sovereignty from Britain. Got sovereignty, so you're given sovereignty. Once again, I don't know what she means by sovereignty. And then it was given away to the European Union. Once again, I presume the countries, the other members of the European Union are not sovereign. Isn't it interesting whenever it's Irish people in Ireland who are Eurosceptic or British people who are in Ireland and they are Eurosceptic, they will say that Ireland is no longer sovereign. Britain wasn't sovereign when it was a member of the European Union. Now it's sovereign, even though Parliament said, yeah, we've always been sovereign. But they never point the finger and say France isn't sovereign because it's a member of the European Union. Isn't that strange?
So now they are desperately contradicting themselves.
Yeah.
Because the EU agreed with them. The EU completely picked up the Irish.
Facilitated them, actually.
Facilitated. And they don't know what to say. It wasn't supposed to be like that. See, if my countrymen have a failing, and they, like all of us, they have many, one of them is that they don't think things through. They have no interest in thinking things through.
You're here talking about sovereignty, and you're saying that Ireland doesn't have sovereignty because it gave it to the European Union, and you're criticising Irish people for not thinking things through. What the hell are you talking about? Have you actually thought things through before regurgitating them on GB News?
True. I'm a great fan of the law of unintended consequences. And there should have been people on the diplomatic side and the political side saying this could prove to be bad for us. But no, we will be throwing our lot with the EU, and they think we're the favoured country of the EU and it's all going to be fine. And now it isn't all fine.
Well,
once again, I don't know what she's talking about. Is she talking about Brexit? Is she talking about the issue of immigration? Because this seems to be the topic that they're basing this on. Now, if it comes to the European Union and Brexit, well, Ireland remained part of the European Union. So why would it take a side with Britain? Britain was leaving. Britain is now a third country. Why would Ireland pick a side here? And if it was picking a side, why would it pick the British side? Britain was leaving. This makes no sense. I think some of these people think, well, because of the relationship that went back hundreds of years, Ireland should have stayed with Britain. Ireland should have left the European Union with Britain. This is a colonial mindset, of course. But Ireland has benefited greatly, massively from EU membership. The UK benefited from EU membership as well. But of course, people were convinced through lies and manipulation by charlatans and crooks it would be better to leave. And now they're realizing it was a mistake. That's why there's so much support to rejoin the European Union. While support for Brexit is tanking. And the more that Brexit is implemented, the more it will tank. But you still have this core belief that the European Union is a problem, that it was right to Brexit, and Ireland is now in a situation where it should consider leaving as well. Now, when it comes to the issue of immigration about infrastructure on the border, I don't see that happening. It's not going to happen. I said before, this conflict, if you want to call it, between London and Dublin over immigration is a storm in a teacup. It will eventually be resolved. I think the Tories were trying to drum up support for it, trying to act tough before the local elections, because they wanted to maintain support with, the typical demographic who are deeply concerned about immigration. Now that that's done, I think what they're going to do is quietly sort this out. And if that doesn't happen, then it will be the next government. It will be a Labour government who will sort it out. But I don't think there's an appetite within Labour to pick fights with the Irish or pick fights with the European Union, because we've seen how that works out. So while people like Arlene Forster and this friend of hers here will try to fantasize about the Good Friday Agreement being torn up and a hard border being put on the island of Ireland, or, God forbid, Ireland decides to leave the European Union, that would be their dream. It's not going to happen. I've said this before. Brexiteers like the DUP bet the farm on the UK leaving the European Union as a whole, a hard border on the island of Ireland, and they lost. They got the worst of both worlds. They got a hard border, a border in the Irish Sea, which cuts Northern Ireland in a sense off from the rest of the United Kingdom. And the more the UK diverges, Northern Ireland is left behind. They didn't want this. We told them it would be a bad idea, but they ignored us. Those on the Remain side who said Brexit would be bad for Northern Ireland. But as I keep saying, the DUP and the likes of the DUP hate Ireland and the EU more than they love the Union. Because if you loved something, you would try and protect it. But their hate was stronger. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.